Hello, and thanks for joining us on Tips for the Transition, the Career Roadmap, where we empower women to navigate significant career and life changes with intention and grace. I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, and each week we share wisdom and a little bit of wit and some insightful expert conversations, creating resources to encourage women to be more confident, resilient, and brave in their choices. We stream live weekly every Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific Time on the E360 TV network, which you can find on your favorite streaming platforms like Roku and Apple TV and Amazon Fire. And we go live simultaneously on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook, where you can interact with us. And if you prefer to listen to your favorite shows, we're on all the podcast channels as well. So if something inspires you, and as you listen here today and you want more, please subscribe to your favorite channel, leave us a comment, and share your favorite episodes so we can create more ripples in the world for women. So, have you ever been on the career ladder only to find there's nothing between you and the top? Or you don't like what you see when you get there? Or maybe you're on the wrong ladder. These are the questions that my next guest asks you in her book. This one. I find them very thought-provoking. So I am so excited to bring her here with us today to introduce you to Dr. Sharon Hull. She's a distinguished family physician and executive coach with over 30 years of experience. Dr. Hull is the founder of Metta Solutions and is passionate about helping professionals, especially women leaders in academic medicine, navigate their career paths with intention, clarity, and purpose. Dr. Hull will share her journey from clinical practice to executive coaching, discuss the importance of intentional career design, and introduce us to practical tools to help us. And I can't wait to share those with you. We're also going to explore how to manage anxiety during career transitions and apply design thinking to your professional life. I suspect her tips will help you in your personal world as well. So stay with us to learn how to take control of your career and create a path that aligns with your values and goals. Let's get started. Hello, Dr. Sharon. Welcome.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Maria. Hello. I'm delighted to be here with you and your audience. Thanks. Looking forward to this.
We are happy to have you. You know, we've tried this conversation a few times and have had some technical difficulties. So third time's going to be a charm. And yes. I've been so eager to bring you and your message and your wisdom to our audience rather. So let's get started. I want to start with what you mean by intentionally designing your career.
Thank you. It's a great opening for me to talk about the approach in my book, but more importantly, the approach that my clients over the years have taught me works for them. The idea that I was taught when I was a child, I'm thinking of high school, maybe that's not child, but when I was in high school, I was asked to create a 5 and a 10-year career plan or a life plan. And in high school, you don't really know what's coming around the corner at you anyway. But for most of my adult life, people ask, what's your 3-year plan? What's your 5-year plan? And during the time of 9/11, which was kind of midpoint in my career, and certainly most recently with the pandemic, it became really clear to me that none of us can see more than a week or two around the corner, and even that's not certain. And so I was working with people, have been working with people for a long time, who are making career changes in the midst of that volatility and that uncertainty. And so we needed a different model. The idea behind intentionally designing your career is having a foundation, a touchstone that you can always come back to as the grounding point for your decision. And then making the best decision you can at that point in your career. And if it doesn't work, knowing that you are free to make other changes by coming back to that touchstone. And for me, that touchstone is figuring out what matters most to you. And I think we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But the idea that we actually have the ability to make the best decision we can in the moment and then redesign when things change. That's what I mean by that. And I'm sure you're going to ask me some more questions and make me go a little deeper.
I am for sure going to do that. I love what you just said. You said to create a touchstone, and your touchstone is getting back to what matters most. And
My favorite question as a coach.
One of mine too. It's like, who are you now and what matters to you now, right?
It's exactly right, yes.
So I know that there are a lot of people who don't have that same touchstone. Their touchstones are different, and that it might be something like, who will I, who will I hurt if I don't do what somebody expects me to do? Or, they come to the realization that they have come into a career to please someone else, right? So the touchstone is so important. I love what you said about that. Let's go ahead.
Let me dive off into that a little bit in light of what you just said, because you're right. Many of us find ourselves making career decisions based on what others think, what we believe others expect of us, and what our responsibilities are in the world. And those things matter. So they become part of the touchstone, right? The way that I have people do this is I ask them to make a top 10 list of the things that matter the most to you at this season of your life right now.
Yeah.
And know that that list can change. And on that list might be, I don't want to disappoint my ex, my parents, my child, my boss, whoever that is.
Fill in the blank, right.
Fill in the blank. That's what I meant by ex, not ex-spouse. I don't want to disappoint somebody. It might be, but I'm obligated to stay put till my children finish high school. It might be, but I've already invested 20 years in this career. And
exactly.
What would people think about me? Yeah, it is a big one.
It's it's not only what will people think about, but who will I be if I'm not that which I've invested 20 years or 30 years of my life in? Those are hard questions. Yeah.
They really are hard questions. And I ask people, go ahead and put them down. They matter to you. Let's sort out what matters and let's put down all the other things that matter. That's why I give people a list of 10 and I tell them there's no right number or percentage of things that have to be personal or professional. My only rule is you have to have both on the list. And then once you get them all written down, then you can start sorting and you can say, well, this is how I've prioritized them, but I want to shift this. All of a sudden, I put 20 years into this career or 30, but I have something I really want to do, whether it's buy a vineyard and make wine, whether it is give back. I have a couple of friends who've just done that, and it's its own journey. But whatever it is, maybe you want to move it up the list. Maybe it's not on the top. Maybe staying put for your kids or being able to have a solid income so you can build a retirement. Maybe that's at the top. But with 10 items, you can play with the priority. And you can say, okay, if I'm being intentional, for the next year, this is the priority. But at the end of this year, I want to move something else up. And that's how I work with that process. And it becomes a touchstone that you can always tweak.
Yeah.
That's the intentionality of it.
And that's so beautiful because it also allows us to see other possibilities that we don't have to think that we're stuck But,
Yes.
we are absolutely being intentional about saying, for the next year, for the next 2 years, this is what I need to do for these really good reasons.
Yes.
And I see the light at the end of the tunnel when I can do something else that I'm passionate about or that I've
Yes.
wanted to try. And I will have the opportunity to explore it then. And that just opens the aperture for us so that
It does.
we don't have to feel stuck doing what we're doing for good reasons, but that
Yes.
it doesn't have to be it's just one decision that you've made, and it doesn't have to be your last decision.
It's why that 5-year career plan doesn't work anymore, because I
Yeah,
think we do
I'm
have to
not sure it
reassess
ever
our
did,
decisions.
honestly.
I'm not sure it did either, but we didn't have other language about it. And I
No.
think as we're seeing people evolve in how they think about work. And
Yes.
it's not a monolithic once and you're
Right.
done decision.
Yeah.
We are
Gratefully, yeah.
constantly renegotiating what we're
And,
agreeing to do about work.
and I think the younger generation gets this. And they are, I am of the era
Hmm.
where I started working for IBM, and I thought that was going to be my entire career.
Hmm.
And that was normal. It was, I changed jobs a lot
Hmm.
within that organization, but it
Yes.
was normal to be with one company for that long. And it's not normal anymore. So I think the younger generation is teaching us a little bit about how maybe we can rethink how we think about the work we do in the world.
I think the younger generation's been leading us for a while. I'm part of
Yeah.
that group when the younger folks say, okay, boomer, they're talking to me.
Yeah.
But I try to be on the like learning edge of being a boomer, and I'm watching my younger colleagues thinking they got this a lot sooner than I did,
Yep.
and what are
Yep.
they going to do with
Yeah.
decisions about work?
Yeah.
The other thing that I think changed things and brought even the boomers and beyond up to speed a little bit was the pandemic, because
Hmm.
everybody reassessed what they were willing and able to do in the face of a
Yeah.
global crisis.
Right.
Um,
And therein lies the silver lining, right?
mhm.
We all had to reset
Mhm.
when that
That's right.
happened, and it gave us the breathing space to think about things differently. Yeah, so that it was a blessing and a curse for sure.
It was both.
Yeah,
Um, it was a cloud, but it
yeah,
had some silver
yeah,
linings. Yeah.
yeah. So I would love to know how this intentional designing of a career helped to inform your journey
Mhm.
from family physician to executive coach. I'm always very curious when a guest of mine has made a transition like that, being
Yeah.
a lover of transitions.
Yes.
So tell me what caused you to make that shift and decide to work with professionals as a career coach?
Well, there's a great story here, and I'll try to be timely and not take too long to ramble on about it. I
Okay.
have had a wonderful career as a physician. I am happy with the work that I did. I spent over 30 years practicing. I spent over 35 years in and around academic healthcare. And along the way, I had the good fortune of having an amazing leadership coach when I became a department chair at an academic institution. And that coach stayed with me for 9 years of my career as I moved
Mhm.
between institutions and up the ladder in various organizations. After a couple of years, that woman looked at me and said, listen, I've listened to your stories about all the things you've done. And the part that's a common thread is you like to help people make their best decisions, and you're really good at not telling them what to do, but helping them think. And that's what coaches do. Have you ever thought about becoming a coach? And I was busy. I was a department chair. I said, oh, stay away from me. I don't have time to learn how to do this. I don't know what I'm doing. And she said, well, you're a natural. And I resisted for a while. And I now joke with her that she was persistent like water on rock, always gentle, but very effective over time. And she gradually got through to me. I won't say she wore me down, because it was bringing me up that she did, but she got through to me that it was really kind of a vocation for me, and an alignment of the things I loved about family medicine and the things that I loved about helping people. So knowing that my spouse was 15 years older than me, and that there was going to be a time where I needed real flexibility in our lives together, and that it didn't necessarily need to be tied to an institution or a title, I began to see coaching as my next phase. And I really thought I would start coaching in my 60s. I started in my 50s and got a chance to become full-time a coach at a major healthcare institution that gave me a chance to build a program for our faculty. Wow. And I found myself in mid-50s doing what I figured I would retire in my mid-60s and do. And so I'm not yet to my mid-60s, and I'm now doing it full-time outside an institution. And I call this my renewment, not my retirement.
Oh, I love that. Oh, what a great, I'm going to steal that.
You can steal that. I stole it from somebody really precious to me, and she's graciously allowed me to use it.
Such a great term to use. I have always hated the term retirement and have never used it. I don't know that I will ever retire, but I've been renewed a couple of times.
Yeah, me too.
I love thinking about it that way. That's great.
The other thing I call it sometimes is, people laugh at this one, is it's my encore career. I took a bow, and I'm having an encore.
So, yeah, there you go. Yep, the curtain closed on the first act, and now it's, right. I get that. Yeah, second act, third act. Yes, it's probably about the fourth act.
Yeah, I understand. Congratulations. Well, that's the thing our younger folks are teaching us. I mean, they're going to have as many as 3 or 4 careers and 15 jobs. Yeah. That scares boomers to death, I'm just going to tell you. But
if we were, I think that's true. I'm meeting a lot of younger people who are doing just that in my career coaching business, and they don't see. I mean, this is normal to them. This is just what they do, and they don't even ask the question, how do I talk about the fact that I've changed jobs so many times? It doesn't even occur to them that would be a concern.
Right.
So, I mean, I think that's really, really good.
Well, I think it is too. And I think that, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
I think the fact that they don't even think about having to explain it tells me that the organizations that stop asking that question and see it as normal are the ones that are going to recruit and retain those young people.
That's right. That's so true. Yep. That's absolutely right. All right. So you use the term design thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So how does that apply to professional careers?
So design thinking comes from the product marketing world, and it is a process of creating a design that you think people will use for a product and reiterating it with feedback from the people who are the end user. Well, we are the end users of our career, and I'm inviting people to reiterate as needed. Rethink that priority list as often as you need to. Now, some people will tell me that that is something that only people of privilege can do. And there is some truth to that, but I will say that I think it's less about privilege than helping every human being find even the smallest measure of agency to make a change. that suits their needs. And that's really what I mean by design thinking. It's calling people to courage, to claim even the most small amount of agency they can find, to make a change that moves them in the direction they want to go. So that's what I mean by design thinking.
It's so important what you just said. Finding courage to take and agency, right? Those are two great words. But to take the lead in finding some small measure of control over what you do next.
Yes.
And that leads to a whole bunch of confidence, right? Self-confidence, which we need in order to position ourselves, to see ourselves doing something else, and then position ourselves to help others connect the dots so that they see it too.
I think that is so critical. And you asked how this process has applied in my own career. And I will say that I didn't have these skills or even have the concepts when I started iterating. I was responding to the needs in my life. And I started looking for what one thing can I do that will move me in the direction I want to be? And what is that direction? So that top 10 list is kind of the roadmap. My tool for inviting people to work with it is to say, what is the very next action that if you took it would help you move in the direction that you want that list to look like in 6 months or a year? And my shorthand for that is a VNA. So I ask my clients, what's your VNA about this? What would move you just a little bit down the road? And it's a lifetime of that.
Yeah. VNA.
Very next action. Yes.
Very next action. VNA. Yeah.
And if you make a habit over a lifetime of choosing those next actions very intentionally and having the courage to make today's very next action happen, it becomes a habit. It becomes you walk in the world with courage about who you are and what you want out of your own life. And that's what I mean by agency.
And what matters most.
Yes.
Making those decisions based on what matters most in the season you're in. And that evolves, that changes.
Exactly.
We evolve. Exactly. You use the word iterate. Yeah, as we evolve, we need to iterate. What we're doing, who we're with. So many things come into play.
They do. And as I'm listening to you talk, I'm thinking about, when designers of a product take a model to the marketplace and they do focus groups and they ask for people's feedback, they're looking at people who are the end user. The end users of how we spend our time are we ourselves and our key stakeholders, our family, our children, the people who depend on us. And we iterate based on their feedback. That is my own feedback and the feedback of my key stakeholders.
Right.
That's how you work that list and that process.
That's right. So it's what matters most to you.
Yes.
Which likely means that you are also taking into consideration what matters to those key stakeholders. Yeah.
Yes, you're likely doing that, but here's a way to make sure you're doing it. Do your own top 10 list and invite your stakeholders to make theirs independent of you. And I include children in that. If they're old enough to understand the concept, and usually that's somewhere around 9 or 10 years of age, you can say, what really matters to you about this decision? We're thinking about this as a family. So everybody makes their own independent list, and then you put them together and look for alignment and misalignment.
Yeah.
And you say, okay, how could we improve the misalignment? What's the very next action that would move us more into alignment together?
Love that.
That's a way for a
Oh,
family to do it.
yeah. Because so many of the decisions we make in our careers affect so many others, not just
Yes.
us, but so many other people we care so much about.
Mhm.
Yes. Okay.
I
Uh,
work with a number of physicians, and I used to ask them, if you decided that your next career move was to go work for Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders, in some other country, who would be impacted? That's your stakeholder list.
yeah.
Who's going to be
Yeah.
impacted by the decision? I'm
Right.
sorry I cut you off. Just as
No,
you
no,
asked me your question.
no, no, that's really good because sometimes some people think I don't have any stakeholders. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks but me. And that's so not true.
Oh,
For I believe everybody. There's somebody who cares or who is impacted by decisions we make. Yeah, so it's good that you pointed that
you,
out.
you'll appreciate this. We just put up a blog post a few weeks ago about what if your key stakeholder is your pet? If you're going to
Hmm.
expatriate, what are the rules about moving your pet with you? I just got a new puppy, so that's all in
Yeah,
the thought
yeah, and
process.
I have fur babies myself, and they absolutely come into play when I'm
Yes,
making choices about things. Yeah, absolutely. All right,
yes.
so I know you have a pretty cool tool called
Hmm.
Hip Pocket Questions.
Yes.
So I would love to hear what those are. Share them
Okay.
with our audience and tell us what they are and how and when we can use them.
Thank you for that question. You've just given me a way to wrap a bow around what we've been talking about.
Oh,
Excuse
good,
me.
good.
The hip pocket questions are really 4 questions with a fifth question that has 2 parts. It's an either or. The first question is, what does matter most to you at this season of your life? That's your top 10 list. The second question is, what matters to your key stakeholders? Have them do their list and then compare notes. So that's questions 1 and 2. Question 3 is, if you're working inside an organization or you're thinking about going to a new organization, ask yourself what matters to this organization. Now, those things are usually very different than what matters to individuals, but it's worth asking, what are the priorities for an organization that you work for or that you're seeking to work for? Question 4 is, what is the alignment between questions 1, 2, and 3? Your top 10 list, your stakeholders' top 10 list, and what matters to the organizations you're working for, considering to work for. Once you've asked those 4 questions, you say, the fourth question is, are there misalignments? The fifth question is, if there are no misalignments and everything is just really good, how do you want to grow? That's the career question. And it doesn't mean you have to leave. It doesn't mean you have to change jobs. What's a skill you'd like to build? How would you like to add to your toolbox? That's how our younger colleagues think about their jobs. They're adding to their toolbox all the time. If, in fact, the answer to question 5 is no, there are some really pretty big misalignments, then the question you ask is, what am I ready, willing, and able to do about those misalignments? And sometimes that's a big leap, like I'm going to go look for a new job. But more often it's, what's the very next action I can take to create more alignment in the short run? And is the misalignment bad enough that I really need to do something soon or something big with a little bit more time out there? So those are the hip pocket questions, and I'd be happy to give you a chance to respond to that and help me
Yeah.
think about how your audience would use that.
So I love the process you just walked us through, and you gave us some really good fodder around that in before we got to the questions. But you're right; it kind of wraps it up in a bow.
Yeah.
Um, the last question. So what matters most? What matters to your stakeholders? What matters to the organization you might be in if you're in an organization, and certainly, what how is it all working together, right? how aligned are you with the what matters to you and what matters to them, and how misaligned are you? And this is where I meet most of my clients, right? In that misalignment space.
Mm-hmm. I meet clients in two spaces. That's a big one. Yeah. The other is they just made a big leap and they feel like everything's aligned, but how are they going to make it work? How do they grow in this new role?
Yeah.
Those are that's the other place I meet people.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the tough question is what are you going to do about it?
Exactly.
Right? There's a misalignment here. What are you going to do about it? And so many feel like they have no choice.
Yes.
And that's where your design thinking comes in so beautifully.
It does. It's where the very next action can be really, really small. I'm sorry, you started to say something.
No, that's true. No, that's so true, right? You don't have to make this giant leap, but you do need to explore your options.
Yes.
To understand what are the possibilities here. If it's not feeling, if you're feeling, I use all those unwords, right? Undervalued, unappreciated, and unheard, all of those things in the organization because, you guys are missing each other, right? There isn't that perfect alignment.
Yeah. That's where I use a tool that's in the book called the Stay-Go Grid.
That's the next thing I wanted to ask you. I'm so glad you brought that up.
Oh, good. Okay. We're aligned today. What I do is have people draw we call it a 2x2 table in medicine. It looks like part of a tic-tac-toe board. It's a 4-box grid.
Right.
The verticals are labeled stay and go. The horizontal boxes are labeled survive and thrive. So the boxes become stay and survive, stay and thrive, go to survive, go to thrive. Okay. And I just ask people, which box are you in?
Where are you? Where are you now?
And which box do you want to be in?
Where do you want to be?
And which box do you have to go to first? Or do you have to hang out here for a little while? It's a great tool to help people see that it doesn't have to be this, I have to quit my job tomorrow because I have this horrible situation. Sometimes that is the answer, and it really is a toxic situation. But most often there are choices before that. And it just helps people open up the options, like you said.
I love that. When you simplify I call this a decision tool.
Yes.
I have a very similar tool. It's called Stay, Go, Now, Later, right? So yours is a stay, very similar. But it's just to help you make the decision about where you are, where do you identify yourself right now?
Yes.
And where do you want to be? And so your VNAs, your very next actions, what's the first next action that you need to take to get you headed in that direction? And is there something you need to do in the interim, right? It's like the stepping stone that will get you where you want to go, but it's not the leap that you can make right now.
I really appreciate you saying it that way. I think people get scared by big leaps unless they're really forced to take them. And there's good reason for that, right?
Sure. But yeah, absolutely.
Just like if I had 50 pounds of weight to lose, which I probably do, we're not going to go there, but you don't try to lose 50 pounds in a week, right? You say, what would it take to break this goal down into manageable steps? And that's what the VNA is. It's what are you ready, willing, and able to do right now, given all the constraints in your life, whether it's kids finishing school or taking care of a parent or 1 year left to vest in your retirement. There are all kinds of contingencies. They're okay to have. You just have to decide what can you do within them.
Yeah. And I love the way you put it too, ready, willing, and able. So you might be one of those, but you're not ready. You might be willing, but you're not ready. I want to do that. I can see that in my future, but I'm not ready to do it now. That's just getting to where you are today and honoring that and not beating yourself up because you're not ready yet.
And it opens such rich coaching conversations. Okay, well, I'm ready to do this. I'm even willing, but I'm not able because of this. Okay, well, what's the VNA that would help you get more able?
That's right. There you go.
Or
that's perfect.
I could quit. I have financial security. I do hear this occasionally. I don't hear it as often as people might hope, but I'm able to do it, but I'm not ready. My identity is just tied up here. I'm not ready yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. Yep.
What needs to happen?
What needs to happen to make you ready? Yeah.
Wow.
I know that in this environment that we are in, some professionals find themselves in a kind of, I think you coined this term, white collar recession, and that can be a scary time.
Yes, it can.
How do you describe what you mean by that, and then tell me how you advise people to maximize their chances for a successful career transition and to manage the anxiety that comes along with that?
I think that's a really rich question. I do have to say, I don't think I coined that term. I've used it a lot. I'm not sure who did coin it.
Yeah,
but
I don't
what it means to me is parts of the economy look really good, but there are layoffs. There are sectors of the economy that are really going through turmoil. And right now we're seeing that in the tech sector. We're seeing it in some other sectors, but right now we're seeing a lot of white collar jobs being lost. During the pandemic, we saw a lot of not white collar jobs. I'm not sure I like the term blue collar, but anyway, let me use the terms that are widely used. The bottom line is there are sectors where things aren't as good as they are in other places. And so white collar workers are not as accustomed to the life of, okay, there may be a lot of layoff and turnover right now. Things are uncertain. It's the uncertainty that if you have a white collar job and a profession, you think that that's security. We were raised to believe that. And it's not as secure as it used to be. And so that creates a lot of anxiety. First of all, it's not secure. Secondly, our belief system about work has been questioned and challenged significantly. So the anxiety is deep and wide in this kind of setting. One of the things that can help, this is my family physician talking, but I'm not giving medical advice or diagnosing. All I'm saying is anxiety comes down when we have an action to take, when we have agency, when we feel like we're in control. And it's part of the reason for this model. When you're in that anxiety spinning in your head place, go back and make your top 10 list again. Update it. Ask yourself, in this season, in this environment for my work, what are my priorities? And what is one action I could take to either learn a new skill, get ready in case I do get downsized, or if I have been downsized, what's one skill I can add to my resume that would make me more marketable? Or is there a career that's adjacent to the one that I've had that I'm almost well-tooled for but need one last thing? Or is there something I've always wanted to do that I'm willing and ready and able to take a risk on? Maybe this is time for a career leap. It really comes down to, that's why I call the top 10 list a touchstone. Come back to center, update your list, and ask yourself, what's one action, no matter how small, that I can take today? And eventually that's going to play through. That's how I would use that for that scenario.
You keep repeating this, and this is so wise. One action, right? One action. The very next action.
Mm-hmm.
If we think about it, I know I can go down a rabbit hole when I
Me too.
start thinking about all the things having to do with something that I want to do.
Yes.
And that can take, but there are so many things to consider, and that stepping back and asking yourself, but what can I do today? What can I do next
Mm-hmm.
that will take me there, that will lead me in that direction,
Mm-hmm.
so that I can make steady progress, that I can create momentum,
Mm-hmm.
and then look back after a few days and see how far I've come. And
I think,
that just starts the ball rolling, and and celebrate right along the way
yes.
that you have been able to accomplish one small action that's leading you toward that thing on your top 10 list that matters most to you,
Yes.
and give yourself grace.
That's the best phrase that's come out of the lexicon in the last 10 years for me is just give it some grace,
Yeah.
whether it's yourself or somebody around you.
Yeah.
You know,
Let it
I was,
breathe.
let it breathe. Just
Let it
there is
breathe.
air in the room. It may not feel like it. Go find
Yeah.
a pocket of air.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you said you were talking about VNAs, and I realized I don't think I've articulated it this way any time before now. But I think there are two things that happen with that VNA approach. What's one small action? Number one, it actually does change the brain chemistry. This is where my background in medicine comes in a little bit handy. We change the brain chemistry of the anxiety hormones by just dialing it down a little bit, and we
Yeah.
interrupt the vicious circle that's going on in our brain by taking one small action. And the second thing it does is it gives us something to celebrate, which actually generates the other hormones in the brain, which
Yeah.
bring pleasure. And
Yeah.
so we're flipping the script on the brain by just one small action.
Yeah. Yeah. And flipping the switch
Yeah.
on those great things that happen in the brain, those hormones that
Yeah.
help us to feel better and feel more accomplished and feel more intentional and feel more grounded and feel more directional, all those
Yes.
good things, right?
Yes.
Yes. So go ahead.
Go ahead, please. I was just going to share a story if we have a couple of minutes. If we don't, it's okay.
Yeah,
Let
I
me
think
let me let you go ahead.
we're probably
Wrapping
needing
up.
to wrap up here a little bit. I
Go
just
ahead.
wanted to bring your book back for a minute, because
Yes.
you talk about the life course of a career.
Yes.
And I want you to tell us what you mean by that, and what
Mhm.
are the career stages where you typically see people working through a transition. I
I
want
think
people to recognize themselves in this.
so. I talk about 8 stages of a career if we include training. Whatever your career is, you're going to have to learn how to do it. And that I call the training phase. And then there is what I call early career, mid career, senior career. And each of those kind of have a front and back half. And then what I call the capstone. I refuse to call it retirement because in today's world, very many people come to me and say, I don't want to retire, but I really want to change things. I want to renew myself.
It's renewment.
It's renewment. That's right. So capstone encapsulates a lot of options, right? But the point of that part of the book is to say at each stage, there are developmental tasks to be learned and practiced. We're familiar with our children need to learn to tie their shoes and they need to be able to stack blocks and the various things that tell us they're growing, right? Well, that doesn't stop with adults. We just don't talk about it in the same way. And what I tried to do in that section of the book is say, here are the tasks that if you're struggling with them, you're probably in early career, the second half, where you're going, wait, I got the rules, but I don't know how to keep up with them. And I'm saying yes to everybody. And I got to learn how to say no. That's a second half of early career task. The first half of mid-career requires that you at least have practiced that, because you're beginning to define what your own work in the world is. And to do that, you have to learn how to say what I call the strategic yes, not just how to say no. And so this is an example of how the tasks tell me as a coach kind of where people are. The tasks in senior career are really defining what the work is you want to finish or pass on to someone else, and get that lined up so that you can wrap it up in the time frame that matters, or you can hand it off to a successor. Capstone requires that you plan for your financial, spiritual, physical, mental, emotional, social well-being, and that you don't land there with no identity or no plan. Those are a couple of examples of what I mean by the life course.
You know, I love that you detailed that for us, because I can absolutely think about my career in my corporate career,
Yes.
and I can see myself in each of those stages, and you described them perfectly. I resonate with those descriptions, and I'm going, oh yeah, it's exactly how it played out for me. And it wasn't until later in my, in retrospect, I wish it had happened earlier. But we are where we are when we are there for a reason, I believe.
Right.
That part about kind of finishing up,
yes,
that is, or passing along, that can happen by your hand or by someone else's, right? It happened by someone else's for me in the layoff, but it was absolutely a time to reflect and go back to your top 10 list, right?
Yes.
What matters most now? And that is, when you're making a transition from each of those phases into whatever else is next for you, that helps to, your definition of those career stages helps to kind of define how you're not alone. Dr. Sharon wrote about these things because
she's done them, and sometimes
common,
not well.
and that's right. And they're common among us in one way, shape, or form. So yeah, I love that you shared that. And there's so many things in your book that I love. So I encourage everyone to get a copy of it if you are even thinking about a career transition, because it will help you a lot. So we need to wrap this up.
Could I offer something? You don't even know that I'm going to do this, so I hope it's okay. But I'd like to offer a discount to anybody who decides to purchase the book, and I'll send you a new link for it. But if they will introduce the code conference25 at the link I'll give you, they'll get a 25% discount from the book.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you.
I hope that's okay with you.
Of course.
I thought it might be. I'll send you the link. I do need to update the link that you have, and the code is conference25.
That's fine. Perfect. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for doing that. Now let's wrap this up in another wrap up. What are the key takeaways that you want people to leave with today?
I think the key takeaway is to recognize that the hip pocket questions can be a touchstone, that you can update them anytime your life changes, anytime you're changing transition states in your career, anytime the world has a major cataclysmic event. And I also recommend updating it on your birthday or whatever holiday it has the most meaning to you. Do it at least once a year and anytime something changes. That's a key takeaway.
And that's a perfect way to wrap this up. That's such a great idea. Great advice. On your birthday, it's renewing, right? You're starting another trip around the sun, it's a
Yes.
perfect time to just ask yourself those questions about what matters most and the ones that follow. I love that. Thank you so much. Dr. Sharon, you've been a delight to talk to. I really appreciate your being here.
I appreciate the opportunity. You have a wonderful audience. I've listened to a number of your podcasts. I really like what I hear, and I think you're doing a real service to your audience.
Thank you.
So thanks for letting me be a part of
Thank
it.
you so much. I know there are going to be lots of people who want to get in touch with you. So tell us what the one best way is to do that.
My website is the best way to contact me on any number of fronts. That website is www.mettasolutions.com. Metta has 2 T's. It's on the screen. So mettasolutions.com.
For those who are listening, it's got 2 T's.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
And if you want to know why, that's on the website. You can dig around and find the reason for that.
All right. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your patience with our technical glitches in the past, and we got through this one beautifully. So I'm honored to have you here.
I'm delighted. Thank you so much for your patience as well. Have a good day.
It is my pleasure. Thank you. And for those of you watching and listening, excuse me, a little frog in my throat, I appreciate that you're a part of this community. And so if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a comment, click a star, let us know what you think. Creating and sharing resources for women like this show is just one of my favorite things to do. And another favorite thing is being a career and life coach for women navigating challenging times and helping them get unstuck, explore new possibilities, and find harmony in their careers and lives. So if something in this episode resonates deeply with you and you would like a fresh perspective, reach out. Let's talk. The links to connect with me and Dr. Sharon are in the show notes below. So click one of those links and continue the conversation. And then let's meet again next time, next Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific time for another inspiring conversation. Because you know what? I believe it's our time to thrive. So let's thrive together. Until next time, I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, helping you to turn transition into triumph.